Hey guys, this is Jason
This is
Douglas.
Adam MacArthur, voice of Yuji Itadori.
This is Derek Snow, the voice of Shinra Kusakabe.
This is Phil Parsons, voice of Kenny the Ripper Ackerman.
It's Merc Nguyen. You're watching Voice of the Heroes. Take it away, Flea Boy.
What's good, everybody? You already know who it is and what it is. And if you don't, it's the one and only one, Flea Boy Jetson. And you're watching the Voice of the Heroes podcast. So if you're tuning in for the first time, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, click that notification bell so you don't miss out on any interviews and discussions from your favorite heroes and villains from around the world. And today we got a very special episode. Our guest has provided his talents in so many great anime shows like Naruto, Shippuden, and Bleach. And my God, so many more. Let's welcome Pete Sepenuk to the show. How you doing?
Woo! What is up? Thanks so much for having me. This is great. And what an intro, too. We got to take this on the road. Phenomenal.
Thank you for coming by, man. I'm definitely excited to talk with you today. Let's get it going. We got to start off with Bleach because, the last season is approaching. It's a bittersweet moment for Bleach fans across the world. It's scheduled to release towards the end of this year. I believe there's no set release date as of recording right now. Now, I have a two-part question for you, right? What was the feeling like coming back to such a beloved franchise and then also having to say goodbye at the same time?
That's a great question. First of all, I love this character so much. And in fact, I believe this was the first anime character I played. I still remember getting a call from Jamie Simone over at Studiopolis. I don't even know how he found me. And just said, hey, we have this role for you. Come on in and record it. So I went in there, and it was Kirk Thornton, who's a legendary actor, director in the anime world. He was the director on it, and so we watched the Japanese version of it, and then we thought, well, hey, I was like, well, I do an impression of Rodney Dangerfield. Why don't we just do that? He was like my favorite, my idol growing up. So I get no respect at all. My mother breastfed me through a straw. That kind of thing. So. Basically we kind of molded it that way, and he's sort of also inspired by the bumbling gangsters from like Midnight Run and Sister Act and that kind of thing. He's always doing the wrong thing, saying the wrong thing, getting into trouble. So so getting into that first with him was great. So coming back to it after, that was in 2007. Here we are in 2025.
Yeah.
What is that, 17 years? So getting to come back and play it, I fell right back into it. They played me some stuff that I did in 2007 when I was recording. I was like, Jesus, who is that character? I've changed so much. Not really. I'm still the same character I was when I was 18. So it was really easy to fall back into it, but it was a blast. It was a blast. He's one of my all-time favorite characters, and doing that character with Mike Greco, who plays Pesce, my sidekick, who, by the way, I love Mike, but he's got the easiest job in show business. It's basically a mask. There's no lip flaps to match with that character.
Hey, that's a good point.
It's just a mask where he just goes like this. He's like, hey, Dondochakka. Hey man, let's go get a deli sandwich. So he has the easiest job ever. So he actually, before we even recorded that, was one of my closest friends, just from doing voiceovers. So I knew him years before that. So the fact that we were paired together to do these characters is the greatest thing ever. It's like you couldn't have picked a more perfect part for both of us to like team up and play these hilarious characters. And they're kind of the only not the only, but they're some of the only over the top characters in Bleach, which is great. It kind of breaks up the sort of the seriousness and the intensity of all the other characters' journeys to have these two idiots. And Nell, of course, Colleen O'Shaughnessy, part of the Iran card around us all out. But coming back to it was awesome. I mean, I could play this character until I die. I mean, I love it. Love him so much. He's such a beloved idiot, So yeah, hopefully that answered your question. So yeah, and saying goodbye to it. Yeah, you know what? I never really felt like I am going to say goodbye to it because it's always going to be in my heart. It's always going to be in my soul. It's always going to be, out there, when people want to talk about it. I love talking about it. So yeah, I think in that world, it may be over in terms of like the story arc and whatnot, but in terms of like, the sort of continuing the fandom and continuing my love for it, that'll never die. That goes on forever. That's infinity. Yeah.
I love it. You
Yeah.
talked a little bit just now mentioning some of the comedic relief that you provided to the show, right? What was it like balancing the comedy with the serious tone of Thousand Year Blood War, especially when everything around Dondo is literally on fire?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I feel like he does have a serious side. He's always like this, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? Pesce, it's all crumbling down, ah! And So I feel like, you watch that's the great thing about dubbing something that's already been created in Japanese first is, it's that so you get to watch. But in this case, because it's a video game, you sort of have it described to you. So you see all the dark things that are happening. It's chaos, the world is ending, that kind of thing. And you kind of have to balance that out with, this is the end. My God, how would Dondochakka react to, sort of the end of the world and up in flames and that kind of thing. So I think bringing that, I think as an actor, here's the deal. Here's a little secret about actors. They always feel like, hey, look, I can play anything and everything. All right. I don't want to be pigeonholed into one thing. I'm not stereotyped. They love it when people say, hey, you know what? Pete can do everything. This person can do everything. Fleaboy Jetson, his show does everything. You want to make sure you can do all the things, right? You're not just one thing, you're everything, right? So when people treat you like you can do everything, that's the best. When people hire you thinking, oh, he can do every layer, he can do every emotion, he can do every voice, he can do everything, that's the greatest job in show business. So I feel like with this character, it was great to sort of have all those different emotions and be able to play those rather than just, saying, oh my gosh, I just hurt my foot. Somebody get me a straw for my toe, that kind of thing. So it's great to have that kind of thing, to have those kinds of different levels and layers to play.
What was your favorite line or moment from your character throughout this run?
Oh God. I have one, which is so me in so many ways. There's a moment where there's a big, where Pesce and I are standing up on a top of like a little hill and it crumbles and we both fall into the hole and I come out.
I know what
He's
you're
still trapped in there. I don't know if you remember that. He's still trapped and there's a big rock that I have to move. I'm like, hey, Pesce, let me get you out of there, brother. And I'm pushing. He's like, come on, Dondochakka, you got this. And I'm pushing. And then finally I'm like, hang on, I got to take a load off here. I'm exhausted, like that kind of thing. That's so me. Like, I'd really love to come pick you up at the airport, but I'm really busy doing this thing right here, totally like passive aggressive, like, don't want to do the one thing that I'm supposed to. Kind of resonated with me. That's kind of who I am sometimes, not all the time. I'm a reliable friend, don't get me wrong. But, when someone come pick me up at LAX, I'm like, hey, I'm really kind of busy. I'm cataloging my old baseball cards, that kind of thing. So I think that's the line that resonated with me the most as Pete.
That's awesome. And don't get me wrong, like I've been doing this a little while now. I probably interviewed like going on like 95 voice actors, but every time y'all transition into your characters, man, my smile goes up. I love to hear it because y'all play, you know what I'm saying? Y'all play some of these characters that we so emotionally attached to. Your voices have made us laugh, cry. I say this all the time. The community knows this, and I'm heavy invested. Maybe not so much when I was a little kid, but now it's like, it's like hearing the show, for instance, right? And the voices coming out the characters. It's almost like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme, like, hey, I know that's such and such. How often do you get to use your real voice instead of putting on like an alter ego?
That's a great question because I think as voice actors in particular, you try to put on a voice for most of the things you do. And I feel like I do that for a lot of different things I do, not just for anime, but for commercials or promos or even narration.
Yeah, you do a lot of narrations, man.
Yeah, I do a lot of narration and like I said, in promos and different things like that. But I think what I like to do is I like to bring my own voice, but I sort of sort of sounds bizarre, but I like to sort of create a character for that particular thing. Even if it's me, it's still kind of a character, a version of myself. That's a better way to put it, I think. It's a version of yourself that you bring to the project, right? So if I'm doing, I'm one of the voices of Major League Baseball, so I, put on a voice, it sounds just like me, like, get ready for a Major League Slam, with that kind of thing. But it's me, but it has a little bit of energy to it. But then when I'm doing like an action figure commercial, like the WWE or Hot Wheels, I'm like, whoa, look out. It comes back around for another vertical explosion, like that kind of thing. So it's still me, but it's a version of me, So in terms of like, I think you choose sort of the style and you choose the attitude and then somehow the voice kind of fits that. So that, I think if you approach it that way first, then somehow the voice comes. But in terms, like I narrated a show about yacht rock for MTV called Sometimes When We Touch, and that was just me being me, just being very like conversational, very try to be mellow because a lot of it took place in the 70s, you know, like Barry Manilow is coming out of his shell right now, like that kind of thing. So, which is the
Remember
well, I
those
guess
commercials and things like that?
I have done commercials like that. That, you know, new soft serve is coming to you. Hey guys, what's going on over here? I don't know where that voice came from. But anyway, so yeah, it's a little bit of it's all an attitude. It's all an attitude you project onto the style that they're looking for, and then you just sort of bring your own essence to it, I think, you know, to make it come
Yeah.
alive.
I miss the movie commercials that used to be like that for the trailers. Oh man, they don't do movie trailers like
No,
that
they don't have the
anymore.
Don LaFontaine voiceover where you have the voice actor talking the entire time. It was one man in a small town with big dreams and big hopes. She just wanted the lobster, but he gave her crabs. You know, like that kind of thing. They don't have that like they used to, you know? Now, honestly, and we were just talking about, it's funny that you bring that up. It's very timely. Like literally last week, I was talking to someone, and we were saying, literally all you hear now is, you know, basically it's the tag at the end, like Thunderbolts, rated PG-13. Like that's all you hear.
Yeah, that's true. That's
You know?
actually true. They probably
Yeah.
do the little tag at the end.
That's it. That's
Yeah,
it.
that's,
So,
that's pretty dope.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
the Bleach fandom is very passionate and loud. How's the fans' response been for you, especially after the new season has brought back your character?
You know, it's been great. I mean, obviously in the new season, I'm not in it as much as I would like. But you know, just the fact that I came back to it and people have been reaching out saying, "Oh my God, it's so great to see these characters again." I think, you know what? I think this show has this whole new audience. And I think, you know, I think all these shows did. Naruto, Bleach, a lot of these shows, I think maybe have sort of came out of the pandemic. Everybody's discovering these shows. So there's all these new fan bases of all ages coming out of the woodwork, which has been phenomenal. I mean, I love, like I said, I loved Dondochakka. You know, I love him as much as the fans do. You know, he means just as much to me as the fans, probably more to me. But it's been amazing. It's been amazing to revisit. Who knew that 17 years later we'd still be talking about this character and still be talking about this show? You know, it's pretty amazing to me.
Yeah, I think
Actually, 18 years. Sorry, I did my math wrong.
they age well. Like these animes, Naruto, Bleach, they have aged very well. Let's speak a little bit about Naruto, right? They're talking about a remake. They're also talking about a movie by Lionsgate. I don't know what's, you know, you hear something and then things get canceled. What would you like to see come out of the Naruto franchise?
Yeah, that's such a huge world. It would be great for them to. I don't know. You know what? Here's the deal. I would love for them to do sort of like what Star Wars did with The Force Awakens, you know, episode 7. They bring back some of the old characters, but then they introduce new ones and they sort of come together seamlessly and create new stories. I think that would be great. By the way, I'm a huge, clear, as you can see in the corner, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I got Yoda in the corner there. Kind of creeps people out a little bit when they walk in and see him there. But anyway, but yeah, I would say that if they can find a way to blend in kind of the old with the new, I think fans would probably love it because you can't just rely on the older characters. You got to like, you know, set up a new story and set up new characters and have them kind of like go off on their journey. But I think the reboots that are done really, really well. I mean, Cobra Kai is like the best example of I don't know. That's a show that should be the worst show on television and somehow it's the best because
They really executed that well.
That's exactly the word I use. I mean, you can come up with any idea and it could be great or it could be terrible, but if you execute it well, which is what they did, then you know you kind of have gold there. Those guys still look great from the old movies. They could still kick ass. That totally seems totally plausible. You know, you still root for them. So I think that if you can do something like that with Naruto, I think that they'll have something good there. I think they'll be able to sort of strike gold if they sort of take that approach and learn from what was successfully done with a reboot with those two franchises, with Star Wars and with The Force Awakens in particular, but then also with Cobra Kai.
Let's transition a little to what you was just talking about just now, Star Wars. You said you're a huge fan, right? They just did Star Wars Celebration, announced a bunch of new projects, animes, a new animated series based on Maul. Like, what's your take on that? And if you could get into any one of those shows, which one would it be? And who would you want to play?
Any and all of them. Where can I start? I don't care if it's a puppet show. I don't care if it's a Star Wars puppet show. It's marionettes. I don't care. Bring me in. That would be the dream, right? Star Wars. I mean, I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and I grew up in the 70s in Portland, Oregon, and there were literally two things to do. There was the Portland Trailblazers and there was Star Wars, like literally the movie Star Wars. In fact, that movie holds the record at a movie theater in my hometown. I grew up in a town called Lake Oswego, which is a suburb of Portland, Oregon. And there was another, the neighboring town, Beaverton, had this movie theater called the Westgate Theater. And the Westgate Theater held the record for having Star Wars play longer than any other theater in the country. It played there for over a year, from when it opened in 1977 to 1978. So that was the only thing to do, is to go see Star Wars 30 times and to go to a Portland Trailblazers game. And in 1977, Star Wars came out and Portland Trailblazers won the world championship. So for basketball. So that movie means everything to me. It's still, A New Hope is still my favorite movie of all time. I'm obsessed with the original trilogy. So in terms of like doing a voice for it, oh gosh, anything. I mean, I'll play like droid number 8, and that just to be a part of that franchise. I was lucky enough to do some commercials for BB-8 back in the day, for a life-size BB-8 that you could like remote control and stuff like that. Even that was amazing. So, but yeah, I'm obsessed. I go to the Star Wars conventions. I know. I'm so glad you brought up Celebration. I just found out that it's going to be here in Los Angeles, where I live, in 2027, which is the 50th anniversary of the original Star Wars. I'm sure it's going to be bonkers, crazy.
That's going to be crazy. That's going to
be nuts. I've already gotten pings from friends that I grew up with saying, "Hey, can I stay with them?" I'm like, slow down, slow your roll here, okay? I'm not an Airbnb, boys, but I kind of am. They can stay back here. I don't care. So yeah, so I'm pretty stoked about that. So yeah, like I said, anything in Star Wars that anybody or anyone would ask me to do.
Do you have a favorite character in the franchise?
Definitely Han Solo, for sure. The first,
okay.
Like I said, the original trilogy, in particular, A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. I mean, I think Harrison Ford's best performance ever is in Empire Strikes Back. I mean, I think that's his. I mean, he's great in the Indiana Jones movies. Don't get me wrong. But Empire Strikes Back. I mean, it's funny. We were talking about Cobra Kai, talking about. I mean, to be in these comic booky, science fiction movies, or these pulpy shows like Cobra Kai, you really there's a lot of baggage going into these, right? And so to pull that off the way like William Zabka pulled off playing Johnny Lawrence again after all these years is amazing. For Harrison Ford to come in and bring all this realism to Han Solo, make him lovable and also like, sarcastic, he makes out with the girl, but he also, acts like he dismisses her. It's amazing. So that's my favorite performance of all time in the series, for sure, is Harrison Ford. And he was great in Force Awakens too. It's just a bummer they decided to kill him off.
Yeah, I didn't understand.
Spoilers.
That
I know
part.
the movie's been out for 10 years, so catch up.
Yeah, I didn't understand that part. I really didn't. I can't say I didn't enjoy, because I did go to every one of them.
Yeah, same.
Movie theaters, and some of them I had a great time. Maybe it was the friends I went with, whatever the case may be, the company. I did enjoy it. I believe the second one was probably the worst one out of them.
The Last Jedi.
Yeah, that one I really didn't understand too much why they even went on and
Right.
did that. But I had the pleasure of interviewing last week, speaking of Star Wars, Mark Thompson, right? He's narrated over 50 of the books.
Oh, yeah. He's a legend.
Yeah, he voiced almost every character within there. And, he was also talking about, canon and, the legend stuff that they had. If you could bring any character from that time, who would it be into canon?
Oh gosh. Okay. So any character from like
The Old Republic, you can go any character that's in like the old books or the comics that didn't make it into the canon.
Oh God, that's a great question. I would say if you could, you know what? Here's what I would do. I would bring in some of this. I don't know about characters per se, but I think if you can bring in some of the stories that were in some of the books, if you can bring some of those moments so we could see them, like, I want to see how, I want to see how Kylo Ren got Darth Vader's helmet out of that fire pit in Return of the Jedi. I want to know that story. I want to see that come alive. I would say anything, like I said, I wanted more stories with Lando, more stories with Han Solo. If they could have had more stories with those two teaming up and Chewie, that would be great. I think, there was a book that came out called Scoundrels, which is basically like Ocean's 11, where they pull off this heist, You know, if
Mm.
they do something like that. I just heard they're doing a Star Wars horror movie. I think that's true, which is bananas. So I think if you could bring back some of those moments that I always wanted to see. Also, the greatest moment that was never even shot, I don't think, as far as I know, was the dinner scene in Empire Strikes Back, where the door opens up and you see Darth Vader, and Han Solo starts shooting him, and they join them for dinner or whatever. Watching that dinner scene would have been great. You know, Darth Vader could have been like, "Us the beans." You know, that would have been phenomenal. So moments like that, I think, and which would involve some of my favorite characters. If that
Yeah,
makes sense.
definitely. I would like to see the old Republic era, and just to see my favorite character, Darth Revan, become
Oh,
part of the
right.
canon, like, would be awesome. I definitely want to see that. But let's pivot a little bit back to something I want to talk about. For those who don't know, I was literally today years old when I found this out. They actually had a 2008 Invincible television series, a motion comic, and our guy Pete voiced Nolan Grayson, aka Omni-Man. That's right, he was the first Omni-Man. Like, and I can't believe it. When I had to like double check it, when I seen it on IMDb, I looked, I said, wait, what is this? And then I went on YouTube. Then I went on the internet looking at it, and I was like, my God, you got to tell us about this.
Okay, this is funny. So yeah, you're right. In 2008, I think I went in to record these in maybe early 2008 or late 2007. They decided to do a motion comic through MTV New Media, which at the time was brand new. They decided to do like little shorts that they would put on the internet. You could download them from iTunes, and so they would come out as little episodes that were like 2 or 3 minutes long. And so yeah, so I went and recorded it at a studio in Hollywood, and it was the motion comic. And it was a blast. I wound up doing the first, I think that what they did is they took the first volume, the first book of Invincible, and they went all the way through. And I think I was in like the first 6 out of 10, something like, I don't really remember the exact amount of episodes.
I think it was
But
in
yeah,
like 10 out of 13.
yeah, maybe that's what it was. I don't, yeah. So, and it was a blast. So so you could watch it on iTunes and you could download it as little episodes. And then they came out with full volumes where you could download like a 20-minute version of it. And it was great. And then I don't know, for whatever odd reason, I don't think they didn't continue it after that. And then I kind of forgot about it in a way. I went and met Robert Kirkman not long after recording. He said the nicest things to me about what I had done and the show, and so that was really cool. This is all before The Walking Dead, by the way. Before the show, he'd already written the comic. And then I find out, years later, they're doing a reboot on Amazon, and it's J.K. Simmons and Stephen Yoon. And I'm like, excuse me, where's the call? J.K. Simmons called me. He wanted some advice. He sent me a wad of cash. No, he didn't. But yeah, so but what's interesting, it's so funny you bring that up. Literally the last few weeks, it's been a lot of people texting me and sending me messages and asking me where these episodes are. They're part of this lost media contingency I think some of them may have shown up on TikTok. I haven't done a deep dive yet, but I think some of them might have showed up. And so I actually talked to the person who was the producer of that, and he said he's not sure if he knows where they are. He said, but he's not sure if they would want to re-release them again. So there have been some inquiries. So, I'd say stay tuned, because for all we know, they could all come out, get re-released, full 4K, who knows? But
yeah, because I couldn't find them. I was on YouTube searching. Like, I had
no, you're not
people like
alone.
talking about it, but
Right.
I couldn't find the actual episodes, which is interesting. But did you think at that time that the franchise would be as popular as it is today?
No, not at all. I hadn't heard of Invincible before I went in to do it. So, I mean, obviously, when I got the gig, I went and I read up. I'm like, Jesus Christ, this Omni-Man is a bastard. Trying to fucking kill his, excuse me, trying to kill his kid. I mean, the relationship between those two, it's very, Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, but like, times, 35. It's like up to 11. It's insane. So I was like shocked. But yeah, it's interesting what they've done, what Amazon has done with these first 3 seasons is great. It's everything. It's everything you would want and expect also from Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, who are just, to me, Like they're sort of the new, I don't know. They're to me, that's sort of my new go-to franchise in a way because the stuff they're churning out is amazing. Like The Boys is one of my favorite shows. Gen V totally worked too. He's on the studio right now, which is hysterical for me, just working in entertainment. So those guys are to me, that's sort of like my new go-to is their brand, I should say. But
Yeah, they're
they've done a
producing great
job
media
on it.
right now.
What's that?
They're producing great media right now. I'm not even going to
Bat in a thousand, totally. So yeah, I've been following them, which they've been amazing.
And they set the bar for superhero genre because I think there was like lackluster of the genre coming out. Like, Marvel's been hit and miss. DC has been down tremendously when it came to their, the Snyderverse. Even though me personally, I enjoyed a lot that came out of the Snyderverse, but I could see why some things didn't work and flop. But I did see when you joined the call, you had James Gunn's Superman joint. How excited are you for the movie?
I am so excited. And I think I can tell you now that I am going to be the voice of for the commercials for some of the action figures for that movie coming out this summer. I just recorded some a few weeks ago. So I'm super psyched to be part of that bit. But I'm so excited. The first Superman means everything to me. It's still my favorite superhero movie of all time, the original Richard Donner one. Don't get me wrong, I love the Marvel franchise. I mean, I'm obsessed with everything up through Avengers Endgame. I think Spider-Man No Way Home was one of the greatest movies of all time. That ending where all three of them team up, Spider-Man's team up is amazing. I may have cried, I don't remember. I did. But oh my gosh, since we're talking about Superman, this is insane. Okay, you see that red cape hanging there?
Yeah.
It's a little embarrassing that I put that up there recently, but that's my Superman cape when I was 8 years old that my mom made for me, and I put it on, and there was a Superman lookalike contest in my neighborhood growing up through the local movie theater, and I dressed up as Superman, and they sent in the pictures, and I don't think I won. I don't think I won because I actually chose a guy who was like 25 years old instead of an 8-year-old, which makes sense. I look like Superboy, but they gave me a free pass to the movie, so I got free passes to the movie theater. So to be part of it, it's so funny that we're talking about this because so many things from our childhood to be able to be a part of it, as an adult is amazing. I'm sure like even yourself, like being a part of it when you were a kid, to be able to have a show where you're able to talk about these kinds of things is also a great way to celebrate our fans.
It's amazing. Like right now, right when I was a kid, I used to love one of my favorite shows coming up in the 90s was Batman the animated series. And here I am sitting with a man that voiced a version of Batman and somebody from his rogue gallery, Clayface. So how does that feel voicing not only a hero of a franchise, but the villain as well?
It's been amazing. It's great. I mean, I love the franchise. I love the villains. I've been lucky enough to voice Clayface, Penguin, Mr. Freeze. I voiced the Joker.
You
and then
voiced the Joker at one time?
I placed the Joker, yeah, and a couple of things. Okay, there's a commercial out there for a Batman toy, and in it, I'm narrating it. So I'm the voice of the commercial. I'm also the voice of Batman, and I'm also the voice of the Joker, and all three, And so it's Batman. What I'm trying to think of the actual commercial. It's the Batman Batmobile coming at you in Gotham City. It's the Batman Batmobile coming in Gotham City. You can cut that down. And then he takes on the Joker. Not so fast, Joker. And the Joker goes, "Oh, take your best shot. Oh." So to play all those three was a blast. That's great.
Amazing, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of the childhood dream, right? To get to
it is, man.
In one particular piece,
It's sick. Now, I know asking this to, any voice actor, their favorite role is basically asking them like, who's your favorite child?
Right.
But do you have a role that's so memorable to you or means that much to you? Maybe it could have been your first one, maybe a more iconic one that you voice, like you're like, my God, I'm really here. I'm voicing this character. Do you have a character like that?
I do. I mean, I kind of love as you just said, I love all my children, but one I like more. I would have to say though, the standouts are kind of the ones that are the breakthrough ones. Like, obviously Dondochakka is amazing. It's just a version of me being a wacky, over the top, dope. I love Kazuma Furito from Bleach, from Naruto Shippuden, great character. Um, Dark. But I also love playing characters, including Bleach and Naruto, where I get to be in this universe where a lot of my friends are in it too. I was talking about Mike Greco, but also Steve Staley, another phenomenal voice actor. I kind of owe a lot of my career to Steve because Steve and I went to college together. He's one of my best friends from Chapman. We grew up together in college, and he was the one who got me into voiceovers, because he had taken a class from this woman named Sue Blue, and she's an animation legend. I took her class. Sue Blue changed my life. She did my demo. She got me an agent. She got me a job. So that kind of like kicked off everything. So to be able to do these shows and play these characters and then hear other friends of mine as these, playing their characters together, that's kind of the ultimate dream, right? Because you just want to hang out with your friends in general. So to be able to work with your friends and hear your friends and play with your friends in these universes is amazing. So yeah, I loved voicing Batman. That was a total dream come true. That was the best. It's so funny. There's so many different versions of Batman, right? There's the Adam West, kind of cheeky, over the top Batman. Robin, we've got to get down to Gotham City now. That kind of thing. That made him sound like Samantha from Sex and the City. But in general, you can play him in so many different ways. So I think I went kind of the route, kind of a little more Dietrich Bader way. He's great as Batman. But yeah, all those to play iconic characters you grew up with is the best. There's really nothing better than that. So yeah, I would probably say those early anime characters, then probably Batman.
Who was your favorite Batman?
Oh God, I would say Adam West. Are you talking about the voicing or just like playing him in general?
Yeah, playing him in general, acting.
Definitely Adam West. And I'll tell you what. When I was in preschool, when I was like 3 or 4, I used to show up at preschool dressed as Batman. I was such a hellion. I was such a little a-hole that the preschool teacher called my mom and said, okay, Mrs. Sepenuk, you need to get him to stop watching Batman, stop showing up in a Batman costume. It's ruining the entire vibe of the preschool, out in the yard. So I had to say, but anyway, I love the old show. And it's funny. I was interviewed in a documentary about Adam West. It was at a Comic-Con, and I said, I don't think they've gotten Batman right since Adam West. Just because as a child, that is your Batman. That's who you grew up with, and then like, wait, Michael Keaton. Wait a second, what's going on here? And Michael Keaton was fine, but for me, Adam West was like the greatest Batman. And I don't know, those shows are so campy and hilarious. They still kind of hold up. So
I
yeah.
haven't seen him in a while, but I remember growing up with that too and watching reruns. I forgot on what channel they used to come on, but I definitely
UHF channel 34 back in 1982. Yeah.
Nah, but those I definitely remember those, man. Now let's talk a little bit. Not only have you done everything from acting, voice acting, because you have done a lot of on-camera work as well. But voice acting and directing, voice directing, what's the journey been like balancing both the creative side and also the leadership side of the industry?
Well, it's interesting because you learn so much by being on both sides of the camera, as an actor, you're trying to like filter the direction of what the director tells you to do and trying to mold your own performance based on, your own instincts and their instincts and taking it from one place to another. And hopefully you sort of mold the personality of the character you're playing together. But the same thing on the other side is the director. Most actors show up, they're ready to go, they've done their homework, that train is speeding down the track, and you just got to show up and be ready. You don't want to derail like Naruto Shippuden, off the track. And when I showed up to play that character, it had already been on for a while, so it's not like, episode 175, I'm gonna be like, I got some new thoughts for this character, but take it a different way. You kind of like you stay in your lane, right, for that one. So in terms of directing, I love it. It's great because, it's so satisfying to watch an actor, when you're directing voice actors to sort of know where they've started and know where they wind up, and to sort of find that rhythm together that's sort of the joy of doing it, right? You sort of together, you're on this journey of, okay, how can we make this character memorable and how can we make him interesting and different, So when you find that, it's great. In terms of directing on camera stuff, when you have a whole crew of people, that's a whole other animal, which is also great. It's also a whole level of stress, that instead of just sitting in a booth one-on-one, it's not too dissimilar from just you and I talking in a way for the voiceover stuff, but for a big production, it's like you see the trucks in the morning. You're like, oh my God, this is all coming down to you. You don't sleep the night before, for the whole shoot, direct. But that's also one of the most satisfying things you can do is to have this huge crew of people and they're all looking to you to direct them and bring them together. And the client's happy most of the time, and you're happy, and the actors are happy. And, there's a lot of like, it's sort of like with an improv trick, there's a lot of yes and like, hey, what you're doing is great. Now let's do this, because we don't have time to like mess around and change things. And, so that's really exciting. It's really exciting. It's stressful, but it's also really exhilarating when you feel like you're nailing it. Less exhilarating when you're not nailing it. When it's not going great. But usually I'm able to put everything back on track so it goes well in the end.
When you're working with new actors, what's one piece of advice you may give them?
You know what? Here's what it is. It's all a healthy dose of self-confidence. It's all like getting in the booth going, all right, great. I like the sound of your voice. I like where this is going. You sound great here. Let's just try tweaking this, You never want to say to an actor, you know what? Yeah, not great. Do it again, only don't suck. You don't want to say that. You basically want to get them you make them so they're really comfortable and, get them to where they feel like they can play. You don't want them to feel like, they just have to stick and be rigid with the lines. You don't want to feel like they can like, use their own instincts. And yeah, let's just try it. Let's just try it. You always want to try something. You never, it doesn't matter whether I'm directing or voice acting or editing or whatever I'm doing. You never want to say that's not going to work without trying it. Because a lot of times people, not just actors, just any artist will say, you know what, I just don't think that's going to work. You have to try it. You have to make sure, just like I hit the computer there. That was a good try. You just have to try everything. You can't just think that, oh, something's not going to work is in your head. It's a bad idea. You have to make sure, you have to see it through. And it might be a bad idea, but it might be an amazing idea. It might take you to a place that you haven't been before. So I always say you have to try it. Even if you think instinctually that's never going to work, you try it like, oh, I was wrong. It totally did work. So you have to be able to take chances and try.
Okay, now I got a question, right? Because I know a lot of up and coming voice actors who's trying to kick down the door and get into the industry. And the industry can be rough because even for successful voice actors, like an average day, you may tape, 5 to maybe 20 auditions or something like that. What type of advice would you give to them if they're not, getting these jobs or getting these auditions? What do you think they need to change in order or overcome those challenges?
Yeah, that's kind of like the industry standard these days, right? You get like 15, 20 auditions a day, and you're lucky if you nail one of them in a week or one of them in a month. It just depends, right? It all comes down to getting better, treating the auditions like a job. This is your job. Like, look, you got to look at this as like, if you're being hired to do this, what are you going to do? What are you going to bring to it? You want to try and be interesting. So many of the specs I get are, real, conversational, kind of guy you'd like to have a beer with, somebody you want to talk to, somebody you want to be their friend, someone who's not trying to sell you things, not really salesy. I have a very salesy voice in general, just because I'm loud. Get that from my dad. My dad, who wanted to be my dad wanted to be a mime because I won the state solo pantomime tournament when I was a freshman in high school. He's like, you would be a great mime. Turns out I like to talk too much. Anyway, in terms of like talking to actors though about, being frustrated about the amount of it, just be glad you're getting auditions now because so many people, the business has changed so much, not just in the last 10 years, but in the last like year. I mean, it's it used to be back in my day, when I started out doing this like full time 20 plus years ago, it was like 30 guys going to an audition at a casting house like in Burbank, and one of the 30 guys would get that one job that would be life changing, that would be like an insane amount of money. It would be a gig that would run forever. Now it's like, the pool of talent is, it's into the hundreds of thousands because of the internet. You're not just, It's basically, you're competing to play cop number 4 in a Subway radio commercial with, the entire planet. You got just as good a shot at getting a guy who lives in Sydney, Australia now. Because everyone has their own home studio. Everybody can do it now. It's not like, back, 20 plus years ago, it's like, oh, I have my own home studio. Like, you didn't hear that. Nobody had their own home studio. But I think with COVID, everybody suddenly now has their own studio. So yes, it's competitive. But you know what? If you love it, you keep doing it. If you like want to keep pursuing this, and you have the drive for it, and you've taken your classes, you've taken acting classes, improv classes, and you love it, you just keep doing it. I tell people, like, if you do it, that's great. I said, but don't do it because you think you're going to make a boatload of money and you're just going to cut corners. You can't. You have to make a killer demo, first of all. You have to, whether it's an animation demo or a commercial demo, the demo is your calling card. It's like having a great headshot. If you have a great demo and you're confident with that, that'll help, because a lot of times people are just looking to listen to demos and listen to your voice. So I think that, as you get experience as an actor, you get more comfortable with the mic, and also you improve and get better. So I always encourage anybody who wants to do it to jump in, because, it seems overwhelming, but don't think about don't think about the competition. Just concentrate on yourself and getting better and enjoying the process.
Speaking of competition, and you also mentioned how times are changing. How do you feel about, AI?
That's the $1 million question, right? It's like, how much longer am I going to be around? It's like, is it going to be a year, 3 years, 5 years? I mean, I took a little bit of inspiration because my voiceover manager posted. He said, "Don't worry so much about AI. Our work doubled last year, so basically, there's still like a ton of real voiceover jobs and auditions and whatnot out there, which is great to hear." It's funny. I think with AI, if you're listening to it, if you know it's AI, then you're gonna be like, oh, this is just inhuman. If you don't know it's AI and it's really good, you're not gonna know. Does that make sense? It's sort of like, it's sort of like when you go in knowing that something's fake, it's like, oh, well, that's fake. But if you don't know it's fake, then you're not gonna be thrown by it. I think in terms of, somebody's career, I think it's pretty scary. I heard a commercial not too long ago that I'd done the original recording of it, and they had changed some lines in it, and they sent it back to me, and they had taken my voice and made an AI version of my voice, which I had never heard before. This is just like 2 weeks ago, that I'd never heard before. I'm like, oh my God, that sounds terrible. I sound like a robot. That version of it sounds terrible. So I took a little hope in knowing that, like, oh, it definitely sounds like AI. But nowadays they have this software where you can go in and, like, I haven't done it before, but you can like record your voice and then it'll play it back for you. And then you can like start typing things in and it'll play it back as your voice. People are doing full podcasts now where they just type up the entire thing and put it in, and it comes out as a full AI spoken word podcast. So it's scary. But you know what? I'm just going to keep on going. I'm just going to pretend like, I'm just going to be delusional, my normal delusional self, right? Like, power through it all and just pretend like it's not going to like take over all the jobs. Eventually, here's the deal. I think it will get there. I think it's not quite there yet. I think it will get there, but I think there will always be real, I think there will always be real voiceover voices.
Yeah. And, I have mixed feelings on it myself. And, I think AI could be good for some things, but as far as acting or voice act, I think it's a terrible idea, because AI doesn't give you that emphasis, that that extra crack in the voice when somebody's, delivering a line that's really sad or something like that. Like, you can feel the emotion from these characters, or you can genuinely feel the punchline of the
Totally.
line that was delivered when the comedian, spoke it, or whatever the case may be,
Right.
in a certain scene. With AI, like you said, it sounds flat. It
Right.
sounds like the person, like some of the memes that I've seen, like you might hear them like a Batman meme or whatever the case may be, but it's
Right.
not the same as the actor actually delivering it. So the fact, like you said, where I can tell the difference is fake, is I have a problem with that. And also I have a problem because, my God, I love me dubbed anime or cartoons. Like, I'm sitting here 40 years old. Yes, I am. And my favorite shows are damn near animated these days. Arcane on Netflix was some of the best shit I've seen by far in a very long time.
Amazing.
X-Men 97 was amazing. Rebels, Clone Wars, things like that were amazing stories that came to life out of some of the comic books I used to read, things like that. But speaking about all these different characters and shows, who's your top 5 fictional characters of all time?
Oh
And
gosh.
you can go movies, books, TV series, animes, wherever you want to go. Top 5.
Characters. Okay. I'm gonna go back to Han Solo. I know we talked about him earlier. So Harrison Ford is Han Solo, definitely number one for me. Icon. I'd say probably off the grid a bit. Spicoli, Sean Penn, Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Oh.
Top 5 of all time. It's funny that character. We showed it to our kids like 5, 6 years ago. They thought that character was hilarious. I mean, it's unbelievable that in like, even today, kids find that. I love that movie, but to find it's always interesting when you think your kids are going to love something and they don't, or you think they're going to hate something and they love it. That's like fascinating to me. But they love Spicoli. So definitely Sean Penn is Spicoli in Fast Times. Oh God. I mean, I kind of have to go with another Harrison Ford in the Indiana Jones movies. I know I'm so like, common with my choices. For sure.
But those are like,
Yeah.
and like especially like for that time, like Indiana Jones, Han Solo, like those are like classic heroes. So I don't even knock you for putting those on your list.
No, they're great. And then definitely James Bond, all the James Bond franchise.
Ooh.
I'm obsessed with that. I got a couple.
Who do you think is going to be the next James Bond?
That's a great question. I thought for sure it was going to be Aaron Taylor Johnson, but so far, they haven't made any announcement. It'll be interesting. I mean, I hope they do I hope the Bond franchise does what they did with the Kingsman movies, because those 2 movies are fire. I love those movies. I think that, they nailed it. I think they're hilarious. I think the action is great. It's got a great pacing. It's got that same. It's the Daniel Craig James Bond movies. They were really well done. He was a really good James Bond. They kind of like took out all the cheeky humor that they have in the Kingsman.
Yeah, it was more grounded and serious.
Yeah, I kind of prefer that. So that for sure. And then okay, this is a weird one. In terms of fictional characters, I'm not a massive Star Trek fan. I will say what Chris Pine did in the reboot of Star Trek. I know you and I were talking about reboots earlier. What they did so well, we're bringing it all back full circle, is that he took the baggage of William Shatner, for all those years he played Captain Kirk, and made within a minute you completely forgot that William Shatner ever played Captain Kirk. He brought his own spin on it. Did such an amazing job. That was like a Jedi trick that he was able to do in Star Trek, that he was able to do to basically create that his own character. That's one of my favorite performances. I think it's the most underrated performance of all time.
I really enjoyed the reboots of them Star Treks.
They're great, right?
It brought me in because don't get me wrong, my uncle was always a huge fan of it. So I came up like he used to have the models.
Oh wow!
Each one of the
he was a fan of the old TV series.
Yeah, he was a huge fan. Me, I couldn't get into it at all. I was more of a Star Wars guy. I wanted to run around with the lightsabers and things like that. But the reboot got me more into Star Wars. Like I really enjoyed the movies, and I'm surprised they didn't make another one. I would definitely like to see one.
Yeah. They made 3. They made 3. They're talking about Tarantino was going to write the 4th one. That didn't quite happen. Who knows? But hopefully they're going to bring it back. Yeah, I love that. So I would say those, and then but probably my favorite non sort of franchise movie would have to be. Well, there's 2: The Warriors and Risky Business are my other 2 favorite. The Joel Goodson character that Tom Cruise played in Risky Business is amazing, and then most of the characters in The Warriors are like I'm obsessed with that movie too. Those movies I'm obsessed with.
If you could recommend any film to any one of our audience members, right, that's underrated, which one would you recommend?
That's underrated. Well,
underrated film.
I think, you know what? I'm going to go Risky Business. I don't know if you would say it's underrated, but I would say it needs to be more appreciated because it's just one of these movies it's a perfect movie. I could say the same thing, though, about The Black Stallion, which I just saw again after all these years, about the horse. That's another perfect movie. But Risky Business is amazing. It's got everything. It's funny. It's got an amazing style. It's got great performances. It's got a tone all its own. And I'm shocked that Paul Brickman, the guy who directed that, only made one other movie after Risky Business. He made a movie called Mendo Lee. But Risky Business, 1983, look it up. It's a gem of a movie.
Okay.
For sure.
Now let's pivot towards I ask all my guests this when they come on the show. It's like a universal question. Well, actually, the next three are: what are your Mount Rushmore? What is your Mount Rushmore of voice actors?
Okay, so let's see. Top four. I would put Don LaFontaine on there, the voice of the guy I was imitating earlier, the trailer guy. In a world, in a land, one place, one time.
I wonder how many
Definitely
trailers he did.
thousands, thousands. His daughter and I were tour guides at Universal Studios together back in 1989. So I go way back, and really sad when we lost him. Great guy, really sweet, sweet man. When you would talk to him in person, he didn't sound like that. He was like, "Oh, hello, Flea Boy. How are you? Nice to see you." And then he'd get on the mic, and then it was like Schwarzenegger. Amazing. So he would definitely be on there. Obviously, Mel Blanc, just because of all the crazy cartoony voices he would do. That's a little obvious, but still. Who else would be on there? Oh, you know who I'd put on there? I would put D. Bradley Baker on there. I don't know if you know who he is. He's done a lot of Star Wars. Yeah. It's funny, when I first did my animation, I did the reverse. You should always do your commercial demo first before the animation demo, but because I was taking an animation class, I did my animation demo first. I used his demo as sort of like as a guide.
Blueprint?
Yeah, 100% as a blueprint. I basically tried to model my demo after his, because his was I was never going to be quite as diverse, and because he does creature voices, he does all kinds of he has a demo just for creature voices where there's no spoken dialogue. It's just all these grunts and tweaks, and it's insane. It's amazing. So I kind of modeled after that. So I would definitely probably put him on there. And then who else would I put on there? Well, for personal reasons, just because he's a good friend, I would maybe put Steve Staley on there. I don't want him to get too swell ahead.
He said maybe, Steve. He said maybe.
Just maybe just because he's such a great actor too.
Hey,
and
shout out Steve, man, and he's
Yeah.
a good guy, man. I had a
Yeah, he's a
pleasure
good guy. Yeah, I think he's done your show, right?
Yeah, I had a great time with him.
Yeah, he's great. He's awesome.
He's actually played one of my favorite Naruto characters of all time, Neji, and it's just so messed up what they did to Neji in that. I don't even talk about it.
Poor Neji.
Get upset.
Poor Neji. Yeah, I didn't get to do any scenes. Unfortunately, I didn't get to do any scenes with him when I was on that show. But yeah, he's amazing. It's funny, like I was saying, even let's see, Senju, who was Peter Lurry, he was my tour guide trainer at Universal Studios back in 1989. Speaking of tour guides back in the day. So yeah, all these
he's a real good soul. I love
He's
Peter,
great.
man.
He's such a good dude. He was one of my early mentors, back when because I was nervous as hell being, a tour guide.